you didn't mention who broke the windows, right? That's the difference, right? That passive voice is because the focus is not on the person who does the action, the subject, the agent, but if the focus is on the action, the person who receives the action or the object, the not the person who does the action, right? That is the difference. The focus, right? The focus is different. Yes, that's good. That's correct, right? So here normally we have the subject, the verb, and then the past participle. That's fine. That's fine. But now this is the subject, and it doesn't mention who, right? It doesn't mention who because that's not important and it's not necessary, right? It's not necessary. Okay, so yes, you have a good idea of the passive voice. Now the passive voice and the past perfect, these are very important for writing when we're doing writing. So our writing is not boring, right? So our writing is not boring because if you make us an example, or if you write something, a story or an essay or something like this, and you only use the simple past, right? I went to the movies, right? I took a taxi. I ate chicken with my friends, etc. Right? Whatever the context is. If you have all of the sentences in the past simple, I took the taxi, I ate with my friends. Yes, these sentences are correct. That's okay. The sentences are correct, but it is very boring. Okay, it is very, very, very boring for the reader. If you're writing something for other people to read, like a teacher or maybe in the article or something. If you write only in the past simple, this can be a little bit boring, a little bit tedious for the reader. So if you want to keep the reader's attention when you're writing, we have to change and use different techniques. And sometimes this is the passive voice. When you can mention, yes, John stole the car. Okay, that's okay. John stole the car. The message is clear. But to make it more interesting, to say the car was stolen, maybe not mentioned by John, or the car was stolen by John. Okay, but the important information, you can change the focus, right, in the passive voice. And with the past perfect, we use it to demonstrate which action happened first. Normally, we use the past perfect to indicate which action happened first. If there are two actions, the past perfect will indicate which action happened first. And that's usually what we can use the past perfect for, to indicate this, right? To indicate this. So it says the past perfect is formed, the formation, right, with had and the past participle, right? So it says in many ways it is simply the past equivalent of the past simple. Sometimes we can use the past simple, we can reemplazamos with the past simple. There's no problem. Usually, right? It's clear. It's clear. Sometimes it's mejor usar el pasado simple if it's in sequential order. Si el orden cronológico, the exact order is así como el verbo, el orden is the same. It's the same. The verb and the order, it's in the same order. No problem. The simple past, it's okay. Right? That's good if it's in sequence. But if it's not, right, you can change the order to make the writing more interesting. To make it more interesting, we change the order and we say in a different order, like Quentin Tarantino, right? He changes the order of his movies. Empieza con el final, después va al principio. It's crazy like this. And this is to make it more interesting, to make the movie more interesting, to make the book more interesting, to make your writing more interesting, right? That's why they use it, right? All right, so examples. It says, I had just seen Mary, right? Not long before a specific time in the past. Right, I had just, and then we use vocabulary like just to talk about recently. Not recently, or say just recently seen Mary. This is I just seen, right? He had been in prison. He had been, all right? He had been in prison. This is talking about one of his life experiences in the past, right? They hadn't been to school that week. All right, now they're talking about that week is a period of time, right? A period of time, all right, in the past, right? He hadn't been to the school that week, aquel semana, in that week. This is the past. When we use the demonstrative pronoun, this, it means now. That, it's usually referring to the past, or maybe the future, but usually the past, right? So we have some examples here. What is the next one? Okay, yes, this is the one. In narratives, in stories, right? So we use the past perfect for stories, for writing, for stories, for telling a story. I'm going to change the order, right? To say what event happened first. ¿Qué sucedió primero? Right? So it's different context, right? It's different context. Normally, this is the one, because we see it in writing a lot. So we said, we arrived at the stadium. When, right? When we arrived at the stadium, the match had started. So first, la acción que sucedió primero, the match started. So this happened first. And then we arrived. Pero lo pongo en el orden, first arrived and then started. Pero en orden cronológico, right? It's first, the match started and then we arrived. In this case, to indicate that this happened first, we use the past perfect. Okay? Yes, okay. You got it? Yeah, that's the idea. Okay, and the next one says, I went to your house, or you had already gone to Jane's house. So again, here, ya me había ido, right? So I had gone already, that's one, and then I went to your house. So it's to indicate this action happened first. That's it. And all of these examples are the same. When I went out to the store, I was surprised in the past, and I realized in the past that someone had broken into my car. So this action happened first. Antes que me di cuenta y antes que me sorprendí, right? Before I was realized and before I was surprised, someone broke into my car, right? And that's the one, the same example. It was my first time on a ship. I was very afraid, right? I had never sailed before in my whole life. Talking about an experience with negative, no, nunca he tenido, right? It was my first time on a ship, right? I was very afraid. This is one verb. This is another verb, right? Two verbs here, pero ninguno de esos sucedieron antes de que nunca había estado, right? Never. I had never been. To make emphasis, this is my first time. This is my first time, right? Okay, so that's one. But let me show you another explanation. Here. Yes, here. Let me show you this explanation for the past perfect, future, present perfect, past perfect simple. Okay. So here we have a review of all the verb tenses. Right? The present continuous, the past simple, past continuous, past perfect simple. Here we go. In the past perfect simple, as we can see, we have an example. When is the use? These are the uses. The uses. The structure, okay, is important, but also the uses are important. An earlier action in the past. So to indicate which action happened first. That's one. And the other one, the other use, el otro uso, is to give reasons. The explanation, giving the reasons for actions in the past or feelings in the past. So we have two. Right? One is for action, to indicate which action happened first, which is the first action. The other context is to explain, to give an explanation, to give a reason for a feeling in the past, or to give a reason for an action in the past, right? The example. Before I found the job, I had been to 30 interviews. Okay, entonces primero fui a 30 entrevistas, después encontré el trabajo. So yes, here we're indicating that this action happened first, and this action happens second. Okay, that's the example in this case. In this case, no. In this case, we're giving a reason. We're giving a reason, an explanation. Emily was unhappy because her husband hadn't, in the negative, hadn't bought her a present. So this is the reason why she was unhappy, because, usamos because it's a reason, so we use because normally, hadn't bought her a gift. So we're explaining this is the reason for this, for the unhappy wife, right? And that's the reason. Now for this, we can go to 34.2. Let me find 34.2. 39. All right, por ahí estamos. Let me check. What number is this? 33. Ah, yes. Entonces me pasé por el 34. Here it is. Yes, so here we have the past perfect simple. This is a more detailed explanation. This detailed explanation is necessary. So when we see here the past perfect and we have the context, this is a famous female pilot. She's a very female pilot, and she's a famous female astronaut. Now, first she was a pilot first, and then she was an astronaut. Right? She was an astronaut. So it says in 1999, Eileen Collins became the first woman commander of a U.S. space flight. Right? But 4 years earlier, before, she had also become the first female American pilot in space. So primero era piloto americana en espacio. She no piloteaba nada, estaba de paseo, right? And the second time, she was the commander. She was the commander. She was the boss, right? She was the maximum authority on this space flight. So this happened first. She was the first American pilot in space, and then she became the first woman commander in the U.S. space flight, and that is the second action, right? That is the second action. So this happened first, this happened second. That's what we see that in that context. So we have affirmations in positive context. I had already seen the film, seen the past participle, right? The past participle had already met, had already finished the past participle of the verb, right? In the negative, we use had and we have not. Had not, had not, had not, or maybe the contraction hadn't. Right? Hadn't. Now, for the question form, we change the order, the position changes. So we have the auxiliary verb, right? The auxiliary verb, the subject, and then the main verb, right? In the participle form. The auxiliary, the subject, and the verb. That's the one. En la pregunta, usamos had. En la respuesta corta, right? The short answer, we will also use had. Had they finished the job? No, they hadn't in the negative. And this is a yes and no question. Si empieza con, if it starts with the auxiliary, the answer is yes or the answer is no. But in this case, no. This is information question. Where? Entonces, looking for a location. Where? It's school, right? In school. The answer, in school or at the movies or at the mall or in the supermarket, I don't know, some other information. Okay, so that's just the form, the formation. That's the easy, excuse me, that's the easy part. This is la forma fácil. What's more important is the use, cuando lo utilizo, right? So to order past actions. So to say what action happened first, this action happened first, what action happened second, right? This is one of the contexts, right? To indicate which action happened first, which action happened second, okay? If the actions happen immediately in sequence, los dos pueden ser in past simple because it's immediate in consecuencia, right? Sequential order, chronological order. We can say, when Colin arrived at the door, she opened it straight away. So primero llegó y después abrió la ventana. Yes, that's normal. So this is both in the past simple because it's very clear. It's immediately, right? It's immediately after. Immediate sequence, right? It says we often use adverbs of time and linking words with the past perfect. These adverbs of time, earlier, right? Before, right? Or the phrases or las frases by the time, right? By the time. That's the phrases, right? Those are the phrases, the linking phrase by the time. The linking phrase by the time and the adverb before or the adverb earlier, right? Must have, antes, right? So that's the one we use it together with the past perfect. And we often use the past perfect in stories. There it is, in stories, to show the series of events in the past. Had stopped here, or she had gone Where had she gone? The grass had grown thick. So this is the context of the stories, right? In this context, yes, that's what we use. Now, sometimes also for giving reasons, right? For giving reasons is number four. Now we can compare the past perfect or the past simple. When do we use it? It says we use, right? We use the past simple, not the past perfect, not, right? Not the past perfect, if the order of the action is clear. So if it's in chronological order, the past simple is enough. It's not necessary the past perfect, right? I got my first job, I left university, right? After I left university, right? And here it's not necessary, aunque las acciones están en diferente orden, but it's clear, right? It's clear, right? I got my first job after I left university. Este after está haciendo todo el trabajo ahí, no es necesario the past perfect, right? I got my job after. It's very clear. It's very clear because of the after, right? Because of the after, right? If the order of the actions is the same as the order of the verbs in the sentence. So in chronological order, right? Chronological. I got to the cafe and then I ordered, right? First, I got to the cafe, then everyone ordered their drinks. O sea, me esperaron para pedir las bebidas, right? But in the next sentence, when I got to the cafe, comma, everyone had ordered their drinks. That's a different story. First, everyone ordered their drinks, o sea, no me esperaron, and then I arrived, right? Then I arrived to the cafe. So in this case, so if it's clear, it's not necessary. But if it's not, we can use the past perfect to make clear that this happened first and this happened second, right? Now, the next context is giving the reason. When you give the reason, we can use the past perfect to give a reason for an action or situation. We often use because, pero no tenemos que usar because, right? Because we can understand it's the reason, right? Eileen became the first commander because she had already flown as a space pilot, okay? Or Emily was unhappy, her husband hadn't bought her a birthday present, right? Por eso dice often, menudo, no dice siempre, right? Because sometimes we could just omit, and it's okay. Okay, this basically means because. Okay, you're giving an explanation, right? And with the superlatives, okay, remember the superlatives, the most, the best, the worst. We use the past perfect sometimes with the superlative adjectives. For example, it was the worst meal, peor comida que I've ever eaten. I had ever eaten. This is in my life, right? All my life, the worst. I never went there again. Right? So we can also use the past perfect after. It was the first. It was the second. Fue la primera, fue la segunda, fue la última. Right? We went to Egypt in 1996. It was the first time we had, past perfect, traveled outside Europe. So that's the different context of the past perfect with more detailed explanation. Now here we can practice identifying in which of these verbs happen first, right? To put one or put two after the verb to identify. For example, 0, it says, Russell realized his mistake only hours after he had sent the money. So first he sent the money, then he realized his mistake, right? That's why first 1 sent, 2 realized. Okay, and then for number 1, please help me with number 1. Please read the sentence, and then after you read the sentence, put number 1 or number 2 or number 2 and number 1, whatever the answer is. Okay, so please read the sentence. Creo que tu micro está apagado.
Okay. When Chris arrived is 2. At the station, the group had already left 1.
Mm-hmm. That's good. Please continue.
When Chris arrived, 2. At the station, the group left.
When Chris arrived at the station, the group left. Ah, but no, that's not 2 and 1. So first he arrived at the station,
At the station, the group
then the group left.
left.
Yes. Porque primero llegó. Chris arrived. That's 1. The group
It's
left.
past simple.
Yes, it's past simple in los dos. Left and arrived. No had. In the first one, yes, dice had already left. This is the past perfect. But in number 2, there is no past perfect. No past perfect. You see, that's the difference.
Yes, it's past simple.
And what about number 3?
Mandy
Palabra clave aquí is before.
Mandy had asked to her father to lend her the car before, but this time he agreed.
Actually, no. This is 1, and this is 2. Porque dice, le había pedido permiso a su papá anteriormente. This before is en esta cláusula, no en la siguiente. Right? Before, right? And then this time, esta vez, and that's the key, this time he agreed. Porque anteriormente le había pedido permiso, pero esta vez aceptó. Right? He agreed this time. That's the difference here. So yes, Mandy had asked her father before, right? That's first. And this time, esta vez, he agreed. That's number 2.
Yes.
All right, now the next one, please. We can identify the verb realized and verb bit had been. Right?
Yes. Sam had been one in the room for some time before he realized, too, it was the wrong class.
Exactly. All right. Continue, please.
And by the time the builders complete two, the work we had already moved in one.
Yes, they completed the work after we were living there. Exactly. Good.
When the builders had completed one, the work we moved in two.
Yes, it's a different context, right? It's the opposite. This is the opposite. All right, let's continue then.
Yelena started to the course because she hadn't found a job.
She hadn't found a job, exactly. She hadn't found a job. Right. And the final one?
Kevin got to the job because he had been won the best interview.
Yes. First the interview and then the job, right? It's not the job before the interview. It's impossible. Now here we have to be careful. Interview termina en W, right? In E. But in this case, it's interviewee. What is the interviewee? We have two, right? Interviewer and interviewee. What is the difference? What is the difference here? Can you explain the difference?
No, I don't know.
Okay, that's fine. The person conducting the interview, o sea, el que dirige la entrevista, is the interviewer con ER, right? But in this interviewee, the interviewee, right, is the person, in this case, applying for the job, right? right? He's applying for the job. El postulante, the interviewee, está siendo entrevistado, right? He's the interviewee, así se le llama. Como se dice employee is the same. Employee is the same as saying worker, right?
Yes,
You
yes.
say employer, right? The employer, we would say, is the boss, right? It's the same idea, right? Employee, the worker. The employer, the boss. Interviewer, the person conducting the interview. Interviewee is the person applying for the job. That is the difference. All right. Good, good. You have that idea. Let's go to our book, and we can continue in this book. Let's see the exercises. What exercises do we have about the passive voice, passive voice, passive voice? Is there something about the past perfect here? Problem. Let's continue here. And it says now, let's select the correct word, right? Let's choose the correct word in italics. We'll choose the correct word. For example, 0, her mother had, right? The auxiliary and the verb. Had a beautiful voice, both when she sang and when she talked, Now here, for number 1, please. What do you think is the correct answer?
Okay. Is had. The girls were still here standing where he had seen them earlier.
Where they had seen them, right? Had seen. The girls were still standing where they had seen them earlier. Yes. Yes, the earlier nos hace entender que that happened before, right? That happened before. All right, good. Now, what about number 2? Liesels. Treat. What is treat? Do you understand this word? Treat?
Es como regalo.
Sorry?
It's like a gift.
Yes, exactly. Like a prize. Not like a gift, like a prize.
Okay.
Right? Like a prize. Like for the dog. Good dog. Toma tu pedazo de tocino, right? That's a treat. Está aprendiendo a dar la pata o hacer sus trucos. Yeah, that's a treat, right? It's like a prize. It's a prize. All right. Liesel's treat was a ride in a car.
Okay, is Lisa's treat was a ride in car. She was had never been in one before.
Yes, not was, but had never been. Exactly. Was never is incorrect, just like saw is incorrect. And had seen and had never been. Perfect. Now, number 3.
The man was very pleasant, reminding him that they had met at Adam's wedding.
Yes. That was very pleasant, reminding him that they had met at Adam's wedding. Yes, they had met. This happened first, happened before.
Yes.
That's why reminding is the recordando. Right, that's the one. All right, and number 4 says, as Joe walked away, or as Joe walked away, he felt or he had felt. That he said or he had said.
He had said.
And the first one, felt or had felt?
Had left.
Felt. No, left is L-E-F-T. Felt. Empieza con F, right? Actually is felt.
Mm-hmm.
As Joe walked away, he felt, not had felt, that he had said, that was also correct, goodbye to the last phase of his